Hi there, my name's Kristen. I've recorded this short compliance review for you today. You're seeing this because we did an audit of your website and online presence, and we found some possible HIPAA issues that we thought you might want to be aware of. So during the review, I'm going to point out the most glaring issues. There may be some others, but they all really need to make sure they get discussed with the practice owner. At the end of the review, Bob will give you a short explanation of how you can mitigate any of the issues that we've identified. And I'll point out the HIPAA issues, of course, but I'll also point out any glaring marketing issues if we see some during the audit. You're going to want to carefully consider the findings because those regulatory penalties for HIPAA violations can be so severe, and no one's immune, even though some of the practice owners that we've encountered out there think that maybe they're too small, like the government has bigger fish to fry, but unfortunately, this just isn't the case. HIPAA investigations are actually largely initiated due to a breach of protected health information. Clinics and other small practices are increasingly finding themselves prime targets for this due to the relative ease of hacking into their systems, combined with that rapidly rising value of healthcare data over any other consumer data on the dark web. Enforcement is also largely a complaint driven process. So it could be a patient or a disgruntled employee, or it could even be a competitor, which unfortunately is all too common. And it's not a localized issue anymore because everything we're doing is online now. And submitting a complaint is actually a very simple process that anyone can follow. The Office for Civil Rights has to investigate any complaint that comes in, and they actually have an online complaint portal for this purpose. I'll show it to you here. It's relatively easy to just enter some basic information and a few simple steps, and then the complaint gets submitted. You can even do it anonymously. I've walked through this myself just to see how difficult it was, and I was personally surprised at how easy it was. So really, you're just one complaint away, even on a good day, and you definitely don't want to make it easy for the investigators by having obvious yet avoidable violations right in the open in your online presence. So we're showing a few highly publicized or pertinent HIPAA violation examples below the video, and you can look at them for yourself. There's thousands of investigations going on at any one time, but right now I just want to get into the review. It shouldn't take more than about 5 minutes of your time. Okay, so the first thing that we look at is whether or not your site itself is secure, and we can see in the upper left-hand corner here that it is not secure, which means you don't have an SSL certificate or secure socket layer, and that is a problem that needs to be addressed. Now, in the bottom right-hand corner here, it looks like you're using a chat feature that calls themselves HIPAA compliant, powered by Swivel, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Then we look to see if you're being hosted on a HIPAA compliant server, and we can see that you're hosted on SingleHop LLC with over 2,000 other sites on the same server. Here's some examples of some of those sites. And here's one of the sites, and we can see, of course, they're not secure either. Now, the red flag here is, of course, that this is not a medical site, and the chances that they wanted to pay extra for the privilege of being on a HIPAA compliant server is pretty slim. So the chances that you're on a HIPAA compliant server are pretty slim. We dug into SingleHop a little bit. They do offer HIPAA compliant hosting. It just appears as though you're not actually using it. So the question that you would need to ask yourself is, do you have a business associate agreement with SingleHop, and have you done the required due diligence to ensure that they can comply with it? Then we look to see how you might be using reviews or testimonials, and we found this Google review here. It's not a great review, and there weren't really any reviews for us to look at other than this. We can see that it requires some education on the part of your staff on how best to manage reviews, good, bad, or ugly, and all practices get them in a range of good, bad, or ugly. So it's just a matter of updating and educating your staff on how appropriately to reply so that you get the best marketing value out of it, but you're also HIPAA compliant in the responses. Then we look to see how you might be using before and after pictures or videos. Now, this is an extremely important part of your marketing program because the most accessed pages on a practice owner's website is always going to be the before and after pictures. People want to be able to identify with something that they're seeing on the before and after pictures. So they see themselves in the pictures. Unfortunately, what you're doing here is you're calling out that you're trying to protect patient privacy by making sure that someone has to go through some kind of a hoop to even be able to see your photo gallery. Now, I can understand why you might want to do that because you're concerned from a HIPAA standpoint. However, there are definite ways that we could improve this for you so that you can get these pictures right out in front where they need to be and do it HIPAA compliantly. It's just a matter of having the appropriate documentation, which most practice owners don't understand what's required from a documentation standpoint, so we could definitely help you with that. Then we look to see how web forms might be used on your site. And little known fact, HIPAA actually covers past, present, and future patients. So the minute somebody hits send on this web form where they've submitted their name, their email, their phone number, they are technically submitting protected health information. So this is something that needs to be addressed because we've already identified that you have an insecure site on a non-secure server. Now let's look at that chat option a little bit. They do have this lovely little symbol down here that looks like they're HIPAA compliant. So that makes you feel pretty good. And then you look at their website and you can see that they say they are HIPAA compliant. However, if you dig into their documentation a little bit, which is of course the due diligence that's required of you, you can see that they don't actually understand what it means to be HIPAA compliant just in what they say here. So it says contact forms or request an appointment forms on practice websites are compliant as long as they collect contact information only, like name, address, phone number, email address, things like that. Now, we've just covered the fact that all 4 of those things are actually considered protected health information. Of the 18 types the government has defined, those 4 are on the list. And it doesn't matter whether it's only one of them or all of them. It doesn't matter whether it's in context with other, sort of medical record documentation. The fact of the matter is that once you've connected any personally identifiable information with a healthcare practice, which is what someone's doing by chatting with you using this feature, then it is considered protected health information and it falls under the rule the same as any other PHI. So this is something that definitely needs to be addressed immediately. Then we look to see if you have any kind of privacy policy on your website, and we were unable to find one. So this is a HIPAA issue, but it's also a website privacy policy issue. There are requirements for websites that you are currently not meeting, and it's something that we could definitely help you with as well. So now we turn our attention to your Facebook page, and we can see that you're using Facebook Messenger. That's what this button is for right here. And we can see it pop up in the lower right-hand side. So this is a HIPAA problem. It's definitely a violation because Facebook itself is not a HIPAA compliant software vendor. They will not sign a business associate agreement with you. And as we've already covered, HIPAA covers past, present, and future patients. So virtually anyone that interacts with you using this application is going to fall under the rule. Now, this gets a little bit worse because Facebook has determined that they want to make sure they're not going to be considered a business associate under the rule. And the way that they're doing that is they recently updated their terms of service to strictly prohibit the use of Facebook Messenger for, and I'm going to quote, communication between a person and a healthcare practice. So this is a direct violation of HIPAA as well as a direct violation of Facebook terms of service, which means that you're in good position to get your ad account or your profile or your page shut down. And then, of course, we can see that you're using Facebook Messenger. We had a little communication back and forth between us and someone in your office. Then we look to see if you're using any pictures or videos on your Facebook page that might have PHI in them. And so clearly we're seeing that. Again, not that this is a bad thing. It's just that in our experience, most practices do not understand or have in place the appropriate documentation that's required. This is something we could help you with. Then we look to see how you might be using Facebook reviews. Now, Facebook reviews sort of are a different little conundrum because Facebook themselves doesn't give you the right as the administrator of your page to actually moderate the reviews to the level that HIPAA requires you to. So depending on what is written in one of those reviews, you may be putting yourself at risk for a HIPAA violation simply because you don't have the ability, because Facebook doesn't give it to you, to delete or to hide that review. Now, taking this a little further, again, we can see that people are leaving reviews on your site, which is great. We need reviews, and there's lots of ways to make that happen. It doesn't necessarily have to be through Facebook, but again, it would require some education for your staff or whoever's answering on the behalf of OH-SUR-surfield plastic surgery to make sure they understand how to respond from a marketing perspective and also from a HIPAA compliance perspective. Then we look to see if you're running any ads through Facebook because, of course, Facebook advertising yields a pretty high return on investment for those who are doing it correctly. We can see that you're running an ad at the time that we did this review. A couple of things to talk about here. Your marketer is actually a business associate under the HIPAA rule. And so you would need to have a business associate agreement with them and, of course, do the due diligence to make sure that they can actually comply with that business associate agreement. Chances are pretty high that that's not actually occurring here because most marketers don't understand what it means to be HIPAA compliant. So we can help you if you're interested in finding a marketer that does understand HIPAA compliance when it comes to medical marketing. We have things like checklists that we can help you so you understand what questions to ask of the marketers to find somebody who can do this for you correctly. Another thing we're noticing here is, of course, that the call to action is, again, send message. So the marketer doesn't even understand the Facebook terms of service that requires you not to use Facebook Messenger as part of your marketing campaign. So this is just a high-level review. We can talk about a lot of other things, I'm sure. I'm just going to turn it over to Bob at this point. He'll give you a couple of options, and we'll go from there.
Now, after watching this, there are 4 options you have. Number 1, you can do nothing. Just ignore what I've shown you and hope for the best. Hope that nobody files a complaint and hope you won't be fined. Option number 2 that you have is to switch off your website. unpublish your Facebook page and stop using them, and find other techniques to market your business. Also, option number 3 is to take this video that I made to your marketing team and your legal team and have them hash it out for you. Option number 4 is to schedule a call below with us and find out about our integrated solution that actually keeps your marketing working or makes your marketing work better and addresses the HIPAA issues that could affect your practice. Now, we have a slew of integrated offers depending on the budget that you have. Book a call with the button below and get on our calendar. On that call, let's talk about your specific situation for about half an hour. After that half hour, you will have clarity on what to do, what it costs, or if it's worthwhile to have your own marketing and legal team hash it out for you. You should definitely not just ignore it because the fines are substantial, especially when you have marketing out there that primarily broadcasts that you're non-compliant. Well, the likelihood of somebody eventually filing a complaint is high. Now, if you switch off your marketing, of course, you're not going to have many new patients, and you still have the issue that your staff is not educated on HIPAA issues. If you go to your own legal and marketing team, that's probably a viable option because apparently you already have some HIPAA procedures in place. You already have a lawyer that helps you do that. If your lawyer doesn't know anything about marketing, though, you may still face the problem that your marketing stops working. Some myths are portrayed even by lawyers who are not HIPAA experts. So if you do that, make sure your lawyer is up to date with all the new rules that have come out in the past few years. Of course, most marketing companies can't even spell HIPAA. I am biased, of course, but I know that our solution is a solution that addresses all the issues involved. So I would encourage you to book a call as the next step. The call is free if you are committed to solving the problems, including the ones that we have mentioned in this video. Schedule a call by going to the URL on the next screen or by clicking the button on this page.